Hi, Nick Tockert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. I'm filming this video as a response to a video that Shad at Shadiversity filmed featuring himself fighting with an HEMA practitioner. This is not in any way weighing HEMA versus other arts, or even versus his. What I'm doing is what my specialty is, and what I do is I teach adaptive fighting. That means I help people who have physical limitations fight or fight better. I help people who otherwise would not be able to see gaps in their self just simply be better, regardless of the style. So that's why you have, I used to work a lot with a guy named Sword Sage. You guys, he's a follower of the list, and I follow his. He's rather popular. Anyway, getting back to things. Now, Shad filmed a video where he went off and he fought with some really cool HEMA guys, and they did long sword fighting. And it was great, great big long sword. This is not. And he did pretty well, and I was happy to see that. There's going to be a lot of commentary on that. But that's not what I'm commenting on during this video. What I'm commenting on in this video is there was a little snippet after, because the longsword guy he fought, the longsword was relatively new. I want to say 8 months into it, and very, very proficient. But at the end, he fought Dussack, which is single-handed, and he fought them against, the instructor, someone with many more years of that style of fighting under him. And I watched that video, and I'm a fan of Shad. I really like Shad's content. I like what he has. This is not a bash on Shad at all. This is a maybe I can help. Because I watched his video, and most of his fighting was done from almost this exact position. Here, let me get way back so you can see this. And he's doing things way out here. Now, there's some reasons for that and why that happens. The other thing, and I'll get to that, the other thing I saw was his steps. Shad does the very large, very big, ground-eating, I'm going to step now. I'm stepping now. Very big. They're balanced because it keeps them from being knocked over, but they're very big, and there are two reasons why that. From watching Shad's videos, I can approximate his height to be very similar to mine, which is about 5'8". I'm not sure that's in imperial. I don't think in metric. I'm sorry, I'm a product of American education. I do the best I can with what I got. But what that means is relative to a lot of people, especially in the sword fighting community, your HEMA guys, your SCA guys, your LARP guys, they tend to the tall guys love to sword fight. And I'm cool with that. I love tall sword fighters. But what we have from Shad are artifices. And they're artifices from two sources. One is his background apparently is LARP, and that explains a lot. Because this flippy shot, pow, pow, lots of quick snaps, come from having a very light weapon, which most LARP weapons are. They pad the weapon, not the armor. That's the philosophical difference primarily between most LARPs and most Western and Eastern style martial artists who actually bother to use armor. And this is a generalization, but bear with me. So you end up LARPies, and that's not meant derogatory, right? LARPers, LARPies. My SCA background from back in the day starts creeping in again, so bear with me. Tend to these fast, very flicking shots, and they tend that shoulder, upper body, because they can't do headshots. This develops things. It affects your targeting. So either somebody who used to be a LARPie is really, really not into headshots, or they're really into headshots because it frees it up. There's not much middle ground. LARPies don't tend to block as much, because while you can block with a boffer, very often, because of the inherent flex in the weapon, it's easy for a shot to wrap around a bit. So they tend to void more. Light, stay mobile. So that's part of why Shad fights the way he does. The other thing is this again. Shad's short. That means proportionately, well, relatively, assuming many fighters are over 6 feet, Shad is relatively short. That means his reach is proportionately much shorter. So he's trying to gain it with the weapon, which is fine, unless you have the same length weapon, and then you run into 2 problems. First problem, single-handed weapons will tire you out if you're fighting overextended. If you're always way out here, you're overextended. Now, Shad has many times written many videos about how smaller, weaker people should fight two-handed because it's much less tiring. And honestly, I agree with that, having done both, but I couldn't understand the vehemence in why he was so focused on that. Now I know, because he's fighting almost entirely at the wrist. Almost the whole time he was fighting single, he was essentially fighting a two-handed with the extension for a two-handed without the support. Because fighting over here one-handed, right, fighting over here two-handed, and I'm doing this with a short weapon on purpose. It makes sense because your shots are extended. This is cool. Fighting like this, however, gets tired. And when you watch the guy who's fighting him, when he's not engaged, he's pulled back. When he's not fighting, he's not fighting. He's resting. Even like the SCA rest. This is a heavy fat stance that the society really likes, the heavy fighters. Because you can still throw shots from here, but you're not wasting energy holding the sword up. So what Shad was doing was fighting extended, big steps. Now the problem with big steps are they're great if you can get that first jump. Because what he's really doing is, in effect, lunging everywhere. Box stepping. That's great until somebody figures out both your motion, your movement range. To borrow from, tactics gaming, how far you can move. And they couple that with your reach. So they know you can move that far. And you always move that far. That's all I got. Any more, my leg won't hold me up. But if I go over here, that's as far as I can go. So somebody knows if they're a little farther, that's where my body's gonna stop. Now if I'm fighting at full extension, very quickly, they learn where my range is. Or my measure, my reach. Especially with the short weapon. I can only go this, let me get back so I'm gonna cut the edge of the camera. I can only cut there. If they're past the edge of this camera, they're over there. I can't hit them. This takes, if you look at your opponent like you're dealing with a dance partner, now you can move out of their reach. And when you're out of your reach, you can rest because they can't hit you. And if you do have to defend from a stance like this with a short weapon, it's relatively easy. Void for the legs, defend for the head if you have to, and go. So, I've kind of talked a bit. Let's get into what I'm thinking Shad might consider trying. 2 steps. 1, learn to pull back more. Fight from a slightly more close. That will keep those side shots from being so open, and it will give you better protection for the headshots for the little ones. 2, work possibly on gathering steps. So, when you do this, don't stop at this extended point. Gather your foot back a little bit. Or gather your back foot and then launch. These are the 2 approaches. But what you want to do, when you end a movement, you always want your feet to be at, roughly centered up with your shoulders. I think Shad's a wonderful, and that's it. This is it. This is all I think he needs right now. There are other things, but learning to pull his arm in, and when he throws a shot, when he throws a shot, he wants to be at the sweet spot. That means he is to aggress closer to his opponent or counter-aggress when they come in. Because as a little guy, it is your responsibility and necessity to gain that extra bit of ground. Because a long guy can poke you all day from way back here. and you can't do much about it. So you have to do a lot of defense, gain ground, and then attack from a defensive point. I have no doubt that Shad could do all of this. I also have no doubt that whatever system he pulls, those idiosyncrasies, those changes from, will help him a lot. So I'm, not bashing Shad any way, shape, or form. This is just an honest critique, trying to give him some new tools or modify the tools he has to make him better at what he does. I hope he finds it interesting. I hope the viewers find it interesting. I also hope, like, share, subscribe. My channel's a little different than a lot of the bigwigs because I focus almost entirely on basic level stuff. There are a whole lot of people like the Metatron, the Scala Gladiatoria. These guys are seeking mastery. And that's how they feel to improve the community, by being the best they can be. I feel my part to improve the community is to help notch up the bottom as much as I can. So the new people, the people who think they can't fight, people with limitations who think they can no longer fight, that's what I focus on. It's, same field, but different ends of it. Well, I hope this was helpful. Please, as always, like, share, subscribe, and support your local swordmaster.